Welcome to another expert interview. I'm always excited for our guests. They all start the same way, right? Because I'm always fired up. I get to meet the coolest people. We talk about the coolest things. I always let my guests introduce themselves because you know you better than me. So, Armando, tell us who you are, what you do, and then we'll dive in.
Sure. Thank you for having me, by the way. Armando Leduc with Leduc Entertainment. And I have a production company, but our special sauce and our real superpower is using podcasting as a lead magnet and referral partner strategy. In a
Oh man,
nutshell.
let's go backwards because I think you sold yourself short, right? Give us a little backstory because you've done some cool stuff. How did you get to this?
Sure. All right. So I'm always like, at what point do you want me to start? You want me to start when I open up my swing Latin and ballroom studio at age 20? Or do you want me to start, or do you want me to start with my acting career? I'll just start with my acting career and what drove me to move to New Orleans in the first place. I was pursuing an acting career. I was doing a lot of theater, and I was like, I really want to do film. And I was going to move to LA, and my agent at the time in Atlanta sent me to an audition here in New Orleans. And I auditioned for this Disney project, found out that they were doing a lot of movies here because of tax credits. So I moved here in 2005, about 6 months before the storm, the big one, Hurricane Katrina, and stayed to help out to, kind of revive the city because I spoke Spanish and I ran a bunch of crews. That's how I got introduced to the construction world. But Hollywood came back, started doing a bunch of television and film projects. I was, lucky to be involved in some amazing projects from Green Lantern to Prison Break to Queen of the South. And, you can go on IMDb and check it all out. And so it was, I really enjoyed the whole process. I would always be on set, not just paying attention to the acting. I was always paying attention to what was the director doing and the director of photography and how are they producing this whole thing and how did it all work. And so I started producing my own projects and was doing a lot of creative stuff, comedies mainly. I started a improv group called Sketchy Characters, and then we started doing more comedies for film. Did a movie called Bourbon Whiz, which is the Wizard of Oz meets Bourbon Street. When you get a moment, you can check that out. It's a wild project. But so I was like, well, how come I can't take the creative end of what we do and infuse that into business? And so I rebranded Sketchy Characters into Leduc Entertainment in 2016. And we started doing production for everybody, weddings, corporate, you name it. Then COVID hit. And then a friend of mine during COVID, he had a $40 million personal injury firm in Atlanta. And I got on a Zoom call and I was like, hey, man, I just want to interview you and ask you questions about how you became so successful. And that was the launch of my podcast that I didn't really understand was going to be my podcast at the time. It just kind of happened organically. Didn't have a name for it, didn't, and nothing. I was just interviewing somebody that was successful. 3 months later, he starts a company called Eight Figure Firm, where he was teaching other attorneys how to scale their businesses to 8 figures, and has done so amazingly well. He's 5 years in business now, and has taken several attorneys to 8 figures. And so he started mentoring me. He's like, Armando, you have $1 million business. You just don't know how to do it. And I was like, great. So I started mentoring with him, learning all of the things that he was teaching attorneys. So I run my business like a law firm, really. But business is business, right? And so we started learning about content creation. And one of the things he told me was like, Armando, you need to do content. And so I was like, oh, well, let me do a podcast because it's an easy way for me to do content and I just put it out weekly. Well, I started spaghetti on the wall and I just did it every week. And I invited people in, actors, dancers, entrepreneurs, attorneys, the whole nine. And then what was happening organically, I didn't plan this. All of a sudden, the people that were on the podcast were sending me business, right? Referrals were coming in, and I was like, oh, this is interesting, right? And then some people were coming on the podcast and becoming clients. And then I was like, okay, so I started doing the analytics and the data, and I was like, yo, we got something here, like that just kind of organically happened. I said, what happens if we become a little bit more intentional about how we're doing this and how we're approaching and niching down to the whole nine? And About 2 years ago, we really started to use the podcast as a referral partner strategy and vehicle. And holy smokes, like the rooms that I've been able to be in, the people that I've been introduced, Devin, is Speakeasy member. The whole reason I'm in Speakeasy was because I joined Flight Club from Jasmine Jonte, who was on my podcast, who I met from Whitney Lee, who was also my podcast, that introduced me to Glenn, that introduced me to Eric, who then I became the captain of the New Orleans Speakeasy chapter. And so I'm meeting all of these people and we're just connecting on this podcast and they're becoming these amazing referral partners. I mean, we have qualified leads that come through, referred to us, warm, hot leads by we had 16 referrals come in last week, right? From people that were on the podcast that are all perfect qualified leads, like no trash, no trash. And so we're just inviting these people to podcasts at scale and bringing them into a sales conversation, and either making them a referral partner or they're becoming actual clients. And we've just been riding that wave, and I don't see it slowing down by any means.
I love that, man. I've wanted to get in the weeds because I want people to understand how you're thinking about what you're doing because I think that's important. I think that fills a lot of holes. And as someone who's been on your podcast, I see the follow up. Like it's really fun to experience the follow up. And so let's go there because I think that some of the stuff is check the box and it's normal, but the way you follow up with your guests, there's a science there. And I was dissecting as I'm getting emails. I'm like, okay, I see you. I see what you're doing. So talk to me about that. How do you follow up with people and get them engaged in your world so that they can refer and so that you can do things?
I'm glad. Yeah, I mean, that is the secret sauce, right? And people can put podcasts together all day, but if you don't have a good follow up, it doesn't matter. And I think a lot of marketers, because we're used to funnels and because we're used to automating and all of that, it just, the humanity gets left out. And I read a book, it's called The Five Love Languages. If you haven't read it, highly recommend it. But I said, why can't we use the five love languages sans touch, right? Um, but just use the four, right? Acts of service, gift giving, words of affirmation, and quality time. And so I said, what if we can infuse those four strategies whenever we're connecting with somebody in the follow up in order for them to feel good? So that every time we meet with them, they're like, holy shit, I like this guy. And so we were like, okay. And I read another book called The Go Giver. And I was like, if we can just at every point be giving them something, they're going to view us differently. And so that's how we've structured the follow-up is, hey, Devin, thanks for being on the show. Would love to leave you a review. So we leave you a review. We also ask for a review. We've got over 100. I think we're about to hit 200 reviews on Google My Business. As a result of just us first giving a review and then asking for it, we've been able to get tons of referrals. And then here, our big thing is connecting people. And I'm preaching to the preacher right now with Devin, right? Obviously. That's my phrase. You can use it if you want. But I'm always like, how do I connect people? Because if you want somebody to respond to you, connect them with somebody. And immediately you'll get a response. I'm like, hey, Devin, you should meet so-and-so because of this, blah, 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 blah. Those people are going to respond, right? They don't want to look like a butthole. So they're going to respond. And then I'm obviously intentional about who I want to introduce too, right? Like I'm not just willy-nilly introducing people that shouldn't meet. I'm always like, you're in the legal space, they're in the legal space. Y'all should meet, talk about how you can refer business to each other, right? And so we're infusing that. We're infusing words of affirmation on their social media. The quality time is the podcast, right? And then we're also inviting them to other people's podcasts. And we also have a gifting strategy for people that are our referral partners. There's a company out here called The Basketry. And they have an entire store, and you just tell them, hey, I want to send Devin a gift. This is what he's like. This is, where he lives, blah, 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 blah. And they'll package it for you. You tell them what your budget is, 200, 500, 600, whatever, and they will send it for you on your behalf. They'll write the letter. I mean, it's just primo. So yeah, We use that, and we're super like we have a playbook builder is our SOP thing that we use. And so it has all of our follow-ups in there. And so every VA that I have, they'll tee it up for me sometimes so that I can send it, or they'll send it on my behalf. And then that way they're doing the work ahead of time, but it's all structured because everybody has a task that's automated. So instead of an automation going out by a person, we really think about, okay, let's stop. Let's think about how we can make this a valuable email or something that they're going to want to respond to, and then we'll send it out.
Love it. Let's talk about the review side. Let's start there because that was the other than the thanks for being on the podcast email. I think that was the first touch. The second touch was the review, which I thought really stood out. And so I wanna highlight that for people because instead of just here's the content, let's share it all together, which is great. You should do that. Please, if you're going to be on podcasts, why are you not sharing the podcast you're on? That's low-hanging fruit. But you led with, hey, Devin, here's a review. Hey, would you leave me a review? And it's like, yeah, of course I'm going to, right? And then what was great is we went back and forth because like, oh, I'm not on Google, but would you leave it on LinkedIn? Yeah, great, no problem. And so I love that as a touch. And so I just want to affirm that as someone who's experienced it. Like I love that touch because it's creating social proof with no friction.
Yeah. I mean, it's for me, it was a no-brainer. Everybody's looking for reviews. Everybody knows that it's the lifeblood of any business. When you are seeing somebody for the first time and you're a cold lead, what's the first thing that you're looking at? You're looking at their Google My Business. You're looking at their LinkedIn or Facebook, any type of review to go, okay, this person is who they say they are, right? Not just because they're saying it, but because you have all of this other social proof here. So for us, it was like, all right, well, we don't necessarily need to just because we didn't use their service doesn't mean that we can't leave a review about their character, right? And so I know some people are like, ethically, I can't leave a review because I don't know what they're like. I was like, well, yeah, but you can talk about their character, right? Like you can talk about what they're like and and what you've experienced. And so that's what we leave reviews on.
I love that. Yeah, I was talking to someone last week. They were talking about they do power hours on LinkedIn recommendations, right? And they just pull up LinkedIn. They go to everyone they've met recently that's just a rock star and they leave them. I'm like, what a great touch. He's like, and then we talk on LinkedIn. And so it's the same thought, right? Lead with the giving. And that's the giver's gain mentality. Let's talk about the referral side because you've got a process there too, right? How do you reach out to people and what do you invite people to get the referral conversation going?
So I do it after the podcast specifically most of the time. And I know we spoke about it where we're like, hey, I call it a Rolodex party because I'm old. Um, some people are like, what is a Rolodex? A CRM party, referral party, whatever you want to call it, right? But basically, I'm just like, okay, let's sit and talk about who it is that you want to meet. We've already spent about 20 to 30 minutes on a podcast together talking about your business. But then I really go, okay, on this Rolodex party call, I'm going, all right, who is your target market? Who is it that you need to meet or want to meet? How can I make that process as streamlined as possible? And they start telling me, then I look through my CRM and I'm like, oh yeah, you should meet so and so and so and so and so and so. By the end of it, I'm like, I've got 5 to 10 different leads for them. And then I spend about an hour to an hour and a half a day just connecting people. And it's the best, in my opinion, it's the best use of my time.
Love it. Yeah, preach to the preacher. So then let's go a step further. After you make those referrals and you have that, and let's say they deliver 100% on the referrals they're going to make, what's your next step in the process? How do you continue to nurture and foster over time? Do you have a long-term play?
Totally. So they'll go in our go high level pipeline. I have one that's just they're a pipeline called referral nurture. And so from there, I figure out, okay, and I got some of the stuff I got from Charles Bird. Shout out to Charles Bird, who runs the Flow Mastermind, but embedded partnerships, right? And I go, okay, who are some people that I really enjoyed? They seem to also enjoy me. how can I meet with them on a monthly basis where we can figure out how to embed our offers into what they're doing and vice versa, right? So for us, digital marketing and SEO companies are great for us because we don't do any of that, right? We just create the content and these guys are starving for it. So we work with a lot of these SEO and digital marketing companies where they just recommend us as video content creators, and then we just tee it up for them and send them all of the content. So we go in every month, we shoot about 50 to 100 pieces of social media content, and then we can deliver it to these digital marketing agencies, right? So that's one embedded partnership that we have. We also do legacy videos, where we will interview grandparents and parents about their life and infuse old videos and photos. And so we will create some embedded partnerships with estate planning attorneys so that part of what they offer is, your estate plan or whatever, but then they infuse the legacy videos into that plan. So I'm always thinking of how can I embed what I'm doing into a referral partnership so that they're benefiting, of course, but then we're benefiting too.
Love that. All right, let's go backwards now. I know we rushed to the after the podcast side, but let's go backwards. And I want to ask one question. Let's talk about the name of your podcast. Where did that come from?
Spaghetti on the wall. That's how I live my life, right? Like I'm always idea guy. I'm always throwing spaghetti at the wall. I'm always like, trial and error type of thing. Do you know the quote from Roosevelt that talks about the man in the arena? Such a good quote. Yeah, it is not the critic who counts. It is not the man who points at the strong man stumbling, right? It is the man in the arena that gets the credit. And so I've always been that way. I'm like, if you just have to try things, right? Some things work really, really well, some things don't. But I think so many people stop because they want to overanalyze and they want to be perfect and all of that stuff. And I have a whole talk on overcoming imposter syndrome that I just spoke about at Eight Figure Firm. And we can get into that if you'd like. But part of it is just my methodology of let's just take action and see what happens, right? And so spaghetti on the wall has just been my mantra. And so that's kind of how the podcast came about anyway. I was just like, we're going to start a podcast. I don't really know what it's going to be about. Spaghetti on the wall. And so now, it really has been. I've had a convicted felon on that was wrongly convicted. He spent 34 years in jail, and I interviewed him on my podcast, right? Actors, entrepreneurs, attorneys, so I have spaghetti on the wall for me, right? That's my podcast. It's what I love. And that's what I use to like connect with other referral partners. But then I have a whole nother podcast called Partnership for Profit. And that podcast is strictly a lead magnet and a referral partnership vehicle. So we're doing anywhere from 10 to 15 podcasts a week with that. And I have a whole slew of podcast hosts so that it doesn't have to be me, right? And so we're getting people into the podcast at scale and bringing them into referral partnerships or sales conversations.
Love it. Let's talk about your clients. So going back to that law firm or someone who's listening going, yeah, you know what? I do want to dip my toe in this podcast world, but I didn't want to do it and not have a strategy. Where do you start with people? What's the flow? What's the process? How do we think about launching?
Love it. I think people should just launch it. I think people, just like you're talking about, they want to be intentional. They want to make sure that I don't even think people understand what the podcast is going to be about until they start doing it. And the epiphanies, right? We learned in 4 phases, from unconscious incompetence to conscious competence, right? And so what I figured out was from all of the years of doing it and all of the podcasts that we've been able to produce for people, where the many breakthroughs happen. And so what we found is when you do your podcast, the 1 to 3 range, right? 1 podcast to 3 podcasts, you're still in unconscious incompetence. This is where you don't know what you don't know. Then you get to conscious incompetence. This is about 5 to 10. You're still uncomfortable. You understand kind of what's happening. You're at least aware of what you're doing wrong. Then you roll into conscious competence, which is right around 25 podcasts. This is where it's still mechanical. You're still having to think about it, but you're in flow at least. And then once you hit 50 podcasts, to me, you've gotten into unconscious competence. This is where you're just doing it. You've done it enough. It makes sense. And so what I would tell people is just start the podcast. Even if you change the name later, even if you which it may happen, right? 6 months from now, you may go, this thing is completely different than what I thought it was going to be like. But you're not going to, and this is part of my talk with the imposter syndrome, it is the action of the doing that creates the epiphany. It is not the planning ahead of time. So what I would say, yeah, in the overthinking, I would say just start the podcast, start doing it. I can give you the intentionality if you already know what you offer, if you already know who your avatar is, right? Those two things are the main things that I would go, okay, let's gear this podcast around that. And then we can talk about how to get into strategy later, right? Now, and we can talk about strategy here too, because I know you want to get into the nuts and bolts. But if I was recommending somebody that has never done a podcast that wants to do it, I'm just going to say, hey, go to ChatGPT, say, hey, my name is John. I do this. These are the things that I love. This is my background. These are the clients that I want to serve. These are my referral partners. Can you give me 10 titles for the podcast? It'll give you 10 titles. Pick one, ask it to give you an intro and an outro, and roll. That's it. Don't overthink it. Just go, right? Then get on StreamYard. And here's the thing that I'm about to change everybody's paradigm as far as podcasts are concerned, because everybody thinks that, oh, I'm going to do a podcast, then I have to edit it, then I'm going to put it out on a weekly basis, and it got to be scheduled, blah, 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 right? Like that's what everybody's doing. This is what I do. I get on StreamYard. If me and Aubrey are going to have a conversation and I'm going to shoot it anyway, then why not stream it live, right? Why not stream it? Get on StreamYard, connect all of your social media accounts. Now you have your podcast has two lives. One where it's streamed, and then the other life when it gets put out on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio. You're doing the same amount of work, right? So, 10x is easier than 2x by Dan Sullivan, right? Such a good book. But I'm like, if I'm going to spend the time to do it, why not maximize that time, right? Because time is precious. If I'm going to be spending the time, then stream it live and then put it out on Spotify and Apple Music, right?
Love that. So I think we're talking to people who are probably already professionals, but what's the guesting strategy? Are they reaching out to people? Like talk me through, how are they inviting people? What's your recommendations?
Y'all are going to want to write this down. Yeah, it's going to be fire. So I recommend highly, if you are niche agnostic, I would at least try to venture to pick a niche in some capacity, right? Because this is where it really starts to, if you want to like go crazy and scale fast, I would highly recommend you pick a niche. Legal, home services, and not just home services, but plumbers, electricians, roofers, construction companies, right? Like really get specific about who you're trying to target. I got a guy that I met who's a client, is a water restoration marketing agency. I met him at Seven Figure Agency in Miami. And so he specifically just deals with water restoration companies. So when you have that niche, all you have to do, and this works so well, go find the podcasts that have those people. So in legal, we look up all of the different legal podcasts that are rolling, right? All the ones that have podcast guests, right? Ken Hardison, he has a podcast. I'm not sure what it is, but he runs a huge conference called PILMA. It's a Personal Injury Legal Marketing Association conference. And so he's got personal injury attorneys from all over the country that come in every year. He's got 286 people that are in the legal industry, from legal vendors to attorneys. And so my VAs, you know what they do? They go, all right, so and so is on this podcast. Let me go to their website, go to the contact us form. So you're not cold emailing anybody, and you go to their contact us form and say, hey, Devin, saw you on Ken Hardison's podcast. Would love to have you as a guest. And you send out that contact us form, and you do that 3 or 4 times in the follow-up, and these people are responding. The response rate is like 78, 79%, right? And that's where we're getting our clients, along with the referrals, of course, right? So like we're getting referrals all day, every day off of the people. But if we're trying to cold contact, if we don't really have a group yet, go to these podcasts, look the people up, go to their website, go to their contact us form, and just invite them, and have a VA do it, obviously, and then put in I put in my email, Armando at Leduc Entertainment.com, my phone number. So it's me, and then they respond to me, right? And I have, my assistant that works on my email. And so it's just a nice little structure that like we're bringing in leads like all day, every day. Like I have 900 people in my pipeline that are all qualified, that are all amazing leads, no trash. We can't even so right now I'm currently trying to hire more podcast hosts / salespeople.
Well, I was gonna say, right? That's a whole role now because you're lead genning specifically, vertically attached. And yeah, there's always a moment. That is the moment. You said it. Go back, re-listen, tell your VA what to do, and go implement the strategy. Because if you're going after a vertical, it's the easiest way. Because now instead of cold marketing saying, hey, we should connect, it's like, no, no, no. I saw you were already creating content. Why don't you come create content with me? Now you create content. Now you move them into your cycle. Love it. Gold.
Yeah.
Let's talk imposter syndrome. We've got a lot of B2B business owners, sales professionals in our world, and I think everybody's dealt with it at some point. So, what's your thoughts? How do you talk about it? How do you overcome it?
So I've been in improv most of my life. I've done Upright Citizens Brigade in Los Angeles, and I've studied here with the National Comedy Company, and just improv has just been such a huge influence in my life and in my psychology. And so it boils down to the 3 rules of improv. Say the first thing that comes to your head. And this is a big problem for most people because we have the inner critic, right? The editor comes in way too early. They want to edit. They want to edit. They want to edit. And I'm like, guys, it didn't even exist yet. I have my sister, who's my project manager. We're always in discussions because I will bring in an idea, and then she'll bring in the edits. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. We got to brainstorm this out first, right? Like let's play. Reason why I love podcasting so much is because if me and Devin are on a podcast, he doesn't have time to bring in the editor. He is on stage. I'm asking him questions. He's got to say the first thing that comes to head. So what happens to people when they're in that space on a regular basis, which is why I say creating content on social media is so important, not because, yes, people are going to become clients for sure, but I think it's more important to create content so that you have more stage time, so that you have an opportunity to put yourself out there on a regular basis and trust yourself. And you have to get those reps in. You have to. I sang in I was a lead singer of a band on Bourbon Street for 8 years. And when I first started, had to have an iPad there, had to have the lyrics, and I would just sing while I was, reading the lyrics, but it took me 2 weeks to get Don't Stop Believing in my head so that I didn't have to look at the lyrics, right? But I would not have gotten there if I didn't have a place that forced me into that uncomfortable place where I had to perform, right? To say the first thing that comes to our head, to trust our instincts, to really trust that we have all of the answers inside. And so I think that people don't give themselves enough of that time. And so for me, podcasting and content creation is a perfect opportunity to give yourself enough stage time to say the first thing that comes to your head. Second thing is say yes and. If me and Devin are doing a podcast together, he's going to say, I'm going to ask him a question. He's going to answer by yes, by saying yes and answering. I'm going to yes and that and build on what he's talking about. Then he's going to build on that. And we're building something together. If Devin comes on my show and I'm like, Devin, what do you think about this? And he starts talking, and immediately I'm like, nah. Like, what's that going to do to Devin? Right? Shuts him down. What am I doing here? Why am I sharing? Right? Makes him feel small. Goes back to the third thing is make your partner look like a rock star. Right? So if I'm infusing all of these three things, the first three rules of improv, if I'm making Devin look like a rock star, which he's doing for me right now by going, this is gold. I love what you're doing. Yes, words of affirmation, right? So now I'm like, oh, I'm in flow. He's giving me what I need, right? Now I'm just talking and I'm trusting myself and I'm on stage and he's, you know what I mean? So all of the three rules of improv are happening right now. And this is the stage. It's being recorded. I have to trust that what I'm talking about is legit. And he's helping me by giving me the words of affirmation that I need to keep going, right? And understand that what I'm giving you guys is solid, is gold. And that's why for me podcasting is such a powerful tool if you want to really connect with somebody, which is probably why Devin invited me here today. We connected on the podcast. I did the same thing for him. When he came on, I was like, yo, this is going to be a preacher preaching to the preacher moment, because the things that you're going to be talking about, I'm going to be doing this all the time. Not because obviously because I really agree with him, but also because I understand that as people, we need that, right? We need the space to allow ourselves to go, oh, this is a safe environment. I can be me. I can authentically be me. I can say the first thing that comes to my head, right? And not fear the ridicule and not fear all of that. So when people are trying to, so is my answer to a short question, but in a long way, people that want to get over imposter syndrome need more stage time so that they can trust themselves more. I think they have the imposter syndrome because they haven't put themselves out there enough to really understand that they have all of the answers within them. They just haven't had the vehicle in which to do it. And so when you're creating content, you're creating podcasts, that's an amazing way to get yourself that stage time.
Mm. Yeah, let's stay there for a second. And when I launched this show, it was funny. I was talking to my uncle. I launched this years and years ago, and then we took kind of a couple year break. And I titled it Expert Interviews. That was it. That was it. It's Expert Interviews. And what's funny is I had people very uncomfortable. Like, well, I don't know if I'm qualified to come on. Right? Obviously, our guest level is leveled up, and we have amazing people like you. But I would have to look at it and be like, what are you talking about? Like you're brilliant at whatever the thing is, and no one knows it better than you. No one's an expert on your journey. You're the expert. And some of the nuggets and the best little pieces of advice, book recommendations, words of wisdom have come out of some of the most obscure interviews. And you probably relate. You probably get on with someone, you're like, I have no clue where this is going. And by the end, you're like, damn, like I wanted to take notes. Like I got to go back and read the transcript.
Yeah.
So I want people to hear that, because that's why I've never renamed. It's still just Expert Interviews with Devin Sizemore, because I want to interview people and I want you and the world to understand Armando has stuff worth sharing.
Hallelujah.
I love that. And improv is fun. I've heard that answer a few times in a few ways. So I love that you grounded it in that, because it's so real to you.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you want to go and date more, if you want to connect in business, if you want to connect with people, improv is such a good way to connect. Like you're just asking questions and you're making people feel good. And by the end of it, they're like, I really like that person. Be like, me too. I like you too, Because you are digging into and allowing people the space to be themselves and not ridicule them for the answer or judge them on it.
Mm. Let's talk about the negatives. Any tips on where people go wrong in this podcasting lead gen world? Give me some red flags, don't do's. Let's talk negative for a second.
Overthink. Oh don't cross your arms, when you're doing a podcast. I've had clients where I'm like, I'm not gonna call them out, but like I'm like, hey, make eye contact. Like if you're like doing this while they're talking, I'm like, what do you do? Like make eye contact. You know what I mean? And even, like they might be boring. I think people are not boring. I think you might be asking the wrong questions. And I'm always the kind of person that like takes extreme ownership because I don't want to put it on them, right? Especially if it's their first time. They don't know. Like you got to ask the right questions. So I took, have you guys read the book How to Write Copy That Sells by Ray Edwards? So good. So good. So he's got a framework called Pastor, PASTOR. And so he takes it, but he uses it for video sales letters. I use it as a framework for asking questions, right? So if me and Devin are on a podcast, sure, I'm gonna get his headline, I'm gonna get bio, I'm gonna get questions that I want that he wants me to ask. But I'm always going back to the framework of Pastor because it's such a good way to get into what it is, the psychology of what they do and why they do it, right? So P stands for people you help. Devin, tell me about the people that you help. Oh, I help attorneys, whatever, right? And tell me about the problems that they have. That's another P. Problem is, I'll talk about myself, right? I help attorneys. What are the problems that they have? The problems that they have are they can't, they don't understand social media. They don't understand videos. They don't understand that, right? So those are the pain points and problems. A is amplification of that pain, right? So what happens if they don't take action? Well, they're going to be left behind. If people aren't using social media in 2025, like, what are you doing? Right? So you amplify that pain. Then S stands for story. So tell me about a story that you helped. Oh, well, Stacey Isaacs, who's a work injury rights attorney in Fort Lauderdale, and we helped her launch her podcast, blah, 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 blah. What T stands for transformation. What was a transformation like? Oh, after working with us, got over imposter syndrome, now is using her podcast to connect with personal injury attorneys. She's setting up referral partnerships with them because she doesn't do personal injury, but she does work injury. So it's just a match made in heaven. And so we invite personal injury attorneys at scale. And so she's transforming her firm as a result. Awesome. Armando, what's the offer? People can work with us, done for you, consulting, or they can join the mastermind. Awesome. And then R is the resolve. What's the call to action? Meet me on leducentertainment.com or find me online, blah, 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 blah. So I use the Pastor framework in networking, right? Like if you guys are at a conference, if you guys are just talking to people and you're like, how do I connect with this person? Pastor. People, problems, amplify stories, transformations. I bet you by the end of it, people are like, dude, I love that guy. He is awesome. Be like, yeah, I'm just asking questions. I'm just curious.
Love it. Aubrey, if you have some questions, I'll give you a chance here in a second. Armando, what haven't we talked about that's on your head or heart? Anything you wanna talk about?
No, I think we covered just about everything. Gave you all the nuggets, the
Love it.
secrets.
Aubrey, you have any questions? Anything you want to ask?
Oh, see, and I'm like the green person. With Tony Robbins, he didn't like you to self-promote. And so now I'm like, okay, opening new spaces. And so I'm like the green person, the don't know what you don't know part. So I do like hearing this and getting exposure and yes, hearing the imposter syndrome piece with improv, right? So that's really fun for me because I could see myself wanting to say, well, after this, then, right? And I don't think that's going to help. So yes, I do like it. So thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Love it. Armando, how do people connect with you? If wherever they're watching, listening, we're going to drop a bunch of links. Where should they go and engage with you? Any offers, shout out, whatever you want.
Sure. LeducEntertainment.com. If they are wanting to start a podcast and they don't, really know how, we consult people on how to start it. We have a done for you system. So if you guys are busy and you don't want to do it, we can do it for you. As a matter of fact, I just created this offer over the weekend because I was at Flight Club and I'm noticing a lot of times that some of these CEOs don't have the time. We can now infuse we can create your podcast for you without you even having to be there because we hire actors and actresses because I'm in that space, and a lot of these guys are out of work. So we can put a podcast host in your podcast along with your business that will be a lead magnet for you and a lead generator, so that all you have to do, they'll use the podcast as a weeding out process, and then you can roll them into referral partnership calls, or so possible to do that too.
Love it, man. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for your time, for your wisdom, for sharing everything. We'll drop all those links. There's a lot packed in here, and we went a lot of directions. So please rewatch, re-listen, and wherever you're doing that, leave a comment so we know what you enjoyed most, or ask a question. Maybe we'll do a part 2. Armando, thanks, brother.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was great.